The first thing Jonah Keene noticed about the chamber was the silence. Not the absence of sound. There was a low harmonic vibration in the air, a constant resonance that seemed to come from the walls themselves, but the absence of human noise. No coughs, no shuffling feet, no whispered conversations meant to reassure nervous colleagues, just him and her. Jonah stood alone at the center of the circular tribunal hall, hands clasped behind his back the way military training had drilled into him years ago, before he'd left the service, before he'd learned that discipline didn't stop you from breaking, it only taught you how to do it quietly. Across from him, elevated on a crescent-shaped dais of dark crystalline material, sat High Executor Nyxara. She did not move. She did not need to. Her presence filled the chamber with the kind of pressure Jonah, associated with deep ocean depths, or sealed vacuum chambers. The sense that one wrong movement might collapse something vital inside him. Nyxara was taller than any human woman he'd ever seen, even seated. Her skin shimmered faintly, not reflective exactly, but responsive, as though it reacted to light rather than merely reflecting it. Her eyes were elongated, iridescent, and unnervingly still. Not cold. Evaluative. The only visible indication that she was not human were the ridged arcs sweeping back from her temples, neither ears nor horns, but something distinctly Elari. She wore no crown, she didn't need one. "Jonah Keene," she said at last. Her voice did not echo. It settled. "You are aware that no human has been summoned before an Elari high tribunal in recorded history." Jonah swallowed. "Yes, Executor. Do you know why you are here?" He hesitated. Every version of the truth collided in his mind. "Because you executed my commanding officer and I didn't stop you. Because I falsified evacuation logs. Because I let 600 people die so 2,000 could live. Because I was useful. Because I was weak. I believe," he said carefully, "that I'm here because you needed someone who wouldn't lie to you." A ripple passed through the chamber, not sound, but something closer to attention shifting. Nyxara's gaze sharpened. "An unusual assumption," she said. "Most humans summoned here assume punishment." Jonah met her eyes. "I've already punished myself." That finally made her move. She leaned forward slightly, resting one elongated hand against the edge of the dais. The motion was slow, deliberate, predatory not in hunger but in focus. "You authorized the destruction of Dock Ring 7, she said. "You overrode evacuation protocols. You signed the final release." "Yes." "You knew civilian populations were still present." "Yes." "And yet," Nyxara continued, "human command reports describe your actions as heroic triage under impossible conditions." Jonah felt something bitter curl in his chest. "Human command writes reports for survivors," he said. "Not for the dead." Silence again. "Then, you did not deny responsibility." "I don't deny facts." Nyxara studied him for a long moment. Most Elari would have appeared aloof, unreadable. Nyxara did not bother with such illusions. Her expression was controlled but not distant. She watched him the way one watched unstable machinery, alert, attentive, ready to intervene. "Your species values emotional justification," she said. "You do not appear to be offering one." Jonah exhaled. "Because there isn't one that fixes it." Something flickered behind her eyes. Not approval, interest. "You were not summoned for judgment," Nyxara said at last. "You were summoned for assessment." Jonah's pulse quickened. Assessment for what? Nyxara rose. When she stood, the chamber seemed to recalibrate around her, as if gravity itself had briefly reconsidered its allegiance. She descended the dais slowly, her steps soundless against the crystalline floor, until she stood an arm's length away from him. Up close, she was overwhelming. Not beautiful in a soft way, beautiful like a storm front. "Humans are emotionally volatile," she said. "Impulsive, inconsistent, excessively attached." Jonah said nothing. "You," she continued, "are none of those things." Her gaze dropped, not to his face but to his chest, as though she were reading something beneath skin and bone. "You made a decision that cost lives," she said. and you have not forgiven yourself. That restraint, that refusal to soften the truth is rare. Jonah's throat tightened. That doesn't make me strong, he said. It makes me functional. Nyxara looked back into his eyes. For Ilari, she said quietly, those are often the same thing. The chamber lights dimmed slightly, responding to her biometric shift. You will remain on this station, Nyxara said. You will serve as my human liaison. Jonah blinked. Liaison to what? To me. The word landed heavier than any sentence before it. I don't understand, Jonah said carefully. There are diplomats, cultural envoys, people trained for. I did not request a diplomat, Nyxara interrupted. I requested you. She stepped past him, her presence brushing against his nervous system like static. You will advise me on human emotional frameworks, she said. Ethics under pressure, guilt, attachment, the irrational forces that drive your species to sacrifice itself repeatedly. Jonah turned, and if I refuse? Nyxara paused at the chamber's threshold. Then, without looking back, then I will find another human willing to carry the weight you already carry. The doors began to seal. Jonah's chest tightened, not with fear but with something colder. Being seen. Executor Nyxara, he said. She stopped. You don't want my insight, Jonah said. You want my damage. Slowly she turned. Her eyes met his, and for the first time since he'd entered the chamber, her expression was no longer neutral. It was honest. Yes, she said, I do. The doors closed, and Jonah Keene understood with quiet certainty that whatever this assignment was, it would not redeem him. It would cost him something worse. Jonah learned very quickly that serving High Executor Valeth Nyxara did not mean proximity. It meant exposure. His quarters were reassigned within hours, closer to the inner ring of the station, where Ilari architecture replaced human convenience. Angles curved where straight lines should have been. Walls responded subtly to presence, dimming and brightening as he moved, as if the station itself were observing him. That was the first lesson. Nothing here was passive. Nyxara did not summon him immediately. Instead, Jonah was given access, partial, carefully constrained, to tribunal records, decision logs, and live feeds from border conflicts between Ilari-controlled systems and fractured human coalitions. He recognized the pattern almost immediately. They weren't asking what humans chose, they were asking why. The second lesson came 6 hours later. Jonah Keene. Her voice arrived without warning, transmitted directly into the neural interface embedded behind his ear. He stiffened instinctively, years of command-response reflex snapping into place. Yes. Come to the observation spine. No title, no delay, just expectation. The observation spine was not meant for humans. It ran the length of the station's exterior arc, a narrow corridor of transparent material that placed nothing between its occupants and open space. No reinforced plating, no visible barriers, only an iridescent energy field humming so softly it was almost imagined. Stars pressed close on every side, too many, too bright. Jonah's stomach rolled. Nyxara stood at the far end, hands clasped behind her back, posture immaculate. She wore a different configuration than before, less ceremonial, more lethal. The crystalline filaments along her arms pulsed faintly, responding to something Jonah couldn't perceive. You are uncomfortable, she said without turning. Yes. Good. Jonah frowned. That's not reassuring. Nyxara turned then, slow and deliberate. For Ilari, she said, clarity does not emerge from comfort, it emerges from stress. She gestured toward the void beyond the field. Humans fear emptiness, she continued. You fill it with noise, meaning, emotion. You build stories so you do not have to listen to silence. Jonah folded his arms, grounding himself. We fill it because silence doesn't care whether we survive. Nyxara studied him. Interesting, she said. You personify indifference. Indifference kills just as effectively as malice, Jonah replied. It just doesn't feel guilty afterward. A faint shift rippled through her filaments. You speak as one familiar with that distinction. Jonah didn't answer. She stepped closer. Your decision at Dock Ring 7, Nyxara said. You sacrificed a portion to preserve a majority. Yes. And you experience persistent guilt. Yes. Why? Jonah laughed quietly, humorless. Because numbers don't scream. Nyxara's gaze sharpened. Explain. Every report, every simulation, every casualty projection. It's clean, Jonah said. Abstract, manageable, but the people left behind weren't numbers. They had voices, faces, people waiting for them. He swallowed. I hear them, that's the cost. Nyxara was very still. For Ilari, she said slowly, such internal persistence would be classified as maladaptive emotional echo. Jonah met her eyes. For humans, he said, it's how we remember who we are. The space between them tightened. Nyxara reached out not to him but to the field itself. Her fingers hovered a fraction from the barrier, light tracing her touch. Come closer, she said. Jonah hesitated. That field will hold, she added, unless I tell it not to. That was not comforting. Still, he stepped forward, stopping beside her. The stars were overwhelming up close. No horizon, no reference point, just endless depth. His pulse quickened despite himself. Nyxara watched his reaction with unsettling focus. Your fear response is elevated, she noted. Yet you remain. I've been scared before, Jonah said. Fear doesn't always mean stop. She turned to him fully now. That, she said quietly, is why you interest me. Jonah frowned. Interest isn't usually the word used when someone's dissecting your trauma. For humans, perhaps, Nyxara replied. For Ilari, interest precedes selection. That landed hard. Selection for what? Jonah asked. Nyxara leaned in, close enough now that Jonah could feel the subtle hum of her energy field brushing against his skin. It wasn't touch, not exactly, but his nerves reacted as if it were. You are being evaluated as a stabilizing variable, she said, a counterweight. To you. A pause, yes. Jonah's breath caught. You're saying you're unstable. Nyxara's eyes did something strange, darkened, as if light itself withdrew inward. I am precise, she said. Decisive, efficient. She tilted her head slightly. But efficiency without constraint becomes cruelty. Jonah studied her face. The control, the power, the absolute command she radiated. And you think I'm the constraint. I think, she said, that you feel consequences where my kind does not. She straightened. You will accompany me during high-level decision cycles, Nyxara said. You will not advise on strategy. You will not soften outcomes. Then what exactly am I doing? Nyxara looked at him, unblinking. You will tell me when I am about to cross a line humans cannot forgive. Jonah's stomach tightened. That's a dangerous role. Yes, she agreed, for both of us. The lights along the spine dimmed further, responding to her internal state. You should know this, Jonah Keene, Nyxara said. I do not form attachments. I do not seek comfort. And I do not protect those who stand beside me. She stepped away, the pressure easing instantly. If you remain, she added, you will be changed. Jonah watched the stars churn endlessly beyond the field. He thought of Dock Ring 7, of numbers without voices, of being seen not as a hero, but as someone useful because he hurt. I already am, he said. Nyxara turned back once more. This time there was no evaluation in her eyes, only something sharper. Then welcome to my shadow, she said. And Jonah understood that whatever line he was meant to guard, Nyxara was already walking toward it, and that stopping her might eventually mean standing against her, which was far more terrifying than the void. Jonah learned where the line was by watching Nyxara step over it. The briefing chamber was darker than protocol required. Ilari lighting responded to hierarchy and intent, not visibility, and Nyxara's intent that day was sharp enough to bend the spectrum. Holographic projections hovered in a slow orbit around the central dais, planetary schematics, population heat maps, probability trees branching and collapsing in real time. Jonah stood to her right, not beside her, not equal, close enough to be implicated. The Kairos corridor has failed, Nyxara said, her voice calm, precise. Human coalition forces have lost control of 3 transit nodes. Piracy activity has increased by 42%. Civilian casualties are escalating. An Ilari strategist inclined his head. Containment options. Nyxara raised one hand. The projections shifted. A single system flared crimson. Sterilization, she said. Jonah's chest tightened. Define sterilization, a human observer asked carefully. Nyxara did not look at him. Orbital collapse of all inhabited structures within the corridor. Permanent denial of access. Zero residual instability. Jonah felt it then, the familiar, sickening sensation of numbers turning into ghosts. How many civilians? He asked. Several heads turned. Nyxara glanced at him at last. Does the quantity alter the necessity? Yes, Jonah said immediately. It always does. A pause, the projections adjusted. Approximately 900,000, Nyxara said. The room went still. Jonah stepped forward despite himself. That corridor is a refugee artery. Half those people aren't combatants. They're displaced. They are variables, Nyxara replied. Their presence destabilizes the region. Jonah felt heat rise in his chest. So did the people on dock ring 7. Nyxara's eyes narrowed imperceptibly. That comparison is inappropriate. It's exactly the same, Jonah shot back. Except this time you're choosing to kill them before they can complicate your projections. Ilari officials exchanged glances. Human representatives shifted uneasily. Nyxara turned fully toward him. This is why you are here, she said quietly. To articulate discomfort, not to obstruct outcomes. Jonah held her gaze. You asked me to tell you when you crossed a line humans couldn't forgive, he said. This is it. The chamber felt smaller. Humans forgive extinction events when they are afraid, Nyxara said. History demonstrates this. Jonah's voice dropped. They never forgive the ones who made it efficient. That landed. Nyxara studied him for a long moment, calculations running behind her eyes faster than any human mind could follow. Remove him from the chamber, she said. Jonah stiffened. You said. I said you would advise, Nyxara interrupted. Not veto. 2 Ilari guards stepped forward. Jonah didn't resist. As he was escorted out, he felt it, the shift. Not anger, disappointment. The corridor outside the chamber was silent, but Jonah's mind wasn't. 900,000. Numbers didn't scream, but he knew exactly what silence sounded like afterward. He leaned against the wall, breath unsteady, hands shaking despite himself. You failed. The voice came from behind him. Nyxara. He turned sharply. She stood alone now, her public composure stripped down to something tighter, more dangerous. The filaments along her arms glowed faintly, agitated. You warned me, she continued. You articulated the human threshold, and then you allowed yourself to be removed. Jonah stared at her. What was I supposed to do? Start a rebellion in your tribunal? You were supposed to matter more, she said. The words hit harder than any reprimand. Jonah's jaw tightened. I mattered as much as you let me. Nyxara stepped closer. You assume power is granted, she said. It is taken. Jonah laughed bitterly. By killing 900,000 people. By preventing instability that will kill millions more. That's what every executioner says, Jonah snapped. It's always for the greater good, always cleaner on paper. Nyxara's glow intensified, her control slipping just enough for him to see it. You think this is easy for me, she said, voice sharp. You think I do not perceive the cost. Jonah faltered, then don't do it. Silence stretched. Finally, Nyxara said very quietly, the order has already been given. The floor seemed to drop out from under him. When? Jonah whispered, 3 minutes ago. Something in him broke, not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet internal collapse. Jonah turned away, unable to look at her. This is why you don't form attachments, he said. Because if you let yourself feel it, you couldn't live with it. Nyxara's voice softened dangerously so. And this, she said, is why I brought you here. Jonah looked back. Her eyes were not cold now. They were conflicted. You make the cost visible, she said, and visibility is disruptive. Jonah's laugh was hollow. Congratulations, you've disrupted me. Nyxara reached out, then stopped. For the first time since he'd known her, she hesitated. If you remain, she said, this will not be the last time. Jonah met her gaze, something raw and furious burning behind his eyes. Then next time, he said, I won't let you send me away. Nyxara studied him. Slowly a dangerous curve touched her lips. Good, she said, because next time I won't give you the option. She turned and walked away. Jonah stayed where he was, heart pounding, knowing with terrible certainty that whatever was forming between them wasn't comfort or healing. It was friction, and friction unchecked either forged something stronger or burned everything down. The system burned in silence. Jonah watched the aftermath from a restricted feed he was not technically authorized to access. Thermal signatures fading, orbital debris dispersing, population markers blinking out one by one until the display was clean. Efficient. That was the word Nyxara would use. Jonah shut the feed down with a sharp gesture and sat there in the dim of his quarters, breathing through the familiar weight pressing against his ribs. This was worse than Doc Ring 7. There had been no alarms this time. No chaos. No chance for heroism or improvisation. Just a decision. Just a woman who had looked him in the eye and chosen otherwise. You're still awake. Nyxara's voice came through the room without warning. No formal summons. No delay buffer. Jonah didn't look up. I didn't think sleep was appropriate, he said. A pause. Then the room responded. Lights shifting, the air pressure subtly recalibrating. Nyxara stepped through the threshold, alone, without guards or witnesses. Her presence filled the space instantly, not with authority this time, but with something tighter, more volatile. You are angry, she said. Yes. Good, Nyxara replied. Anger is more useful than despair. Jonah stood. This isn't a lesson, he said. This isn't a simulation. You killed 900,000 people. Nyxara didn't flinch. And their deaths will prevent the collapse of 12 adjacent systems, she said. Projected casualties averted exceed 8 million. Jonah laughed, sharp and incredulous. You think that math absolves you? No, she said. I think it defines me. She moved closer, her presence brushing against him again, that hum along his nerves, the faint pressure like standing too close to exposed power conduits. You wanted honesty, Nyxara continued. This is it. I am not conflicted about the decision. I am conflicted about you. Jonah's chest tightened. Then maybe you shouldn't have brought me here. Maybe, she agreed, but I did. She stopped an arm's length away. Tell me, Nyxara said quietly, if you had my authority, my reach, would you have done differently? Jonah didn't answer immediately. He thought of Doc Ring 7, of the screaming he'd learned to live with, of the silence afterward. Yes, he said finally, I would have tried. Tried what? To save some of them, Jonah said. Even if it cost me strategically, even if it made things messier. Nyxara tilted her head. And if your attempt failed? Then at least the dead wouldn't be clean, he said. They'd be acknowledged. Something in Nyxara's expression fractured just slightly. Elari do not acknowledge failure, she said. We correct it. That's the problem, Jonah replied. Some failures are supposed to hurt. Silence stretched between them, dense and charged. Nyxara turned away first. You think pain makes decisions moral, she said. It does not. It makes them human. She faced him again. And I am not human. Jonah took a step closer before he could stop himself. No, he said, but you're not as empty as you pretend to be either. The filaments along her arms brightened. That, she said sharply, is a dangerous assumption. You hesitated, Jonah pressed. Before you touched the barrier, before you spoke to me just now, you feel the weight, I can see it. Nyxara's eyes darkened, light folding inward. You see fragments, she said, not the whole. Then show me the whole, Jonah said. If you're going to keep using me as your conscience, at least stop pretending you don't have one. For a moment, he thought she would order him out. Instead, Nyxara did something far more dangerous. She reached up and disabled the ambient dampening field in the room. The hum intensified instantly. The air thickened, charged with her unfiltered presence. Jonah's breath caught as his nervous system reacted, every instinct screaming proximity, awareness, risk. "This," Nyxara said, her voice lower now, layered with something raw, "is what I keep contained." Her control slipped, not completely, but enough. Jonah felt it then, not emotion as humans defined it, but pressure, intent. Focus sharpened to the point of pain. It wasn't rage or sorrow. It was responsibility without relief. "I carry entire systems in my calculations," she said. "Lives reduced to probabilities. Outcomes optimized until nothing remains but efficiency. And you," she gestured sharply toward him, "walk in and insist that feeling the cost matters." But Jonah's voice was rough, because it does. Nyxara stepped closer. "So tell me," she said, "how do I rule without becoming what your species will one day rise up to destroy?" The question hung between them, heavy and unanswerable. Jonah met her gaze. "You don't," he said. "You choose which parts of yourself you're willing to lose." Her eyes searched his face, not evaluating now but listening. "And what would you have me lose?" she asked. Jonah swallowed. "Your certainty." Nyxara went still. "That," she said slowly, "would weaken me." "Yes," Jonah agreed, "it would." The space between them felt fragile now, one wrong word from collapse. Nyxara reached out. This time she didn't stop. Her fingers brushed his wrist, not a full touch, just enough for the hum to spike, for Jonah's pulse to betray him. The contact was brief, controlled, but the effect was immediate. "Do not mistake this," she said quietly. "I am not seeking comfort. I am assessing a variable I cannot yet quantify." Jonah didn't pull away. "Good," he said, "because I'm not here to make you feel better." Her lips curved, not a smile, not quite. "Dangerous human," Nyxara murmured. She withdrew her hand, reactivating the dampening field. The pressure eased, leaving Jonah acutely aware of its absence. "This is not finished," she said, turning toward the door. "You will remain." Jonah watched her go. For the first time since Dock Ring 7, since the tribunal, since the corridor burned clean, he felt something other than guilt anchoring him in place. Resolve. Nyxara was not beyond saving. But if he misstepped, if he pushed too hard or too late, she wouldn't just burn worlds. She would justify it. And next time, Jonah knew, the line wouldn't just be crossed. It would be drawn through him. Nyxara stopped asking Jonah after decisions. She started asking him before. The first time it happened, he didn't realize the trap until it was already closing. They stood alone in the inner strategy vault. No observers, no live feeds rooted to secondary councils. The room was older than the station itself, built when the Elari still believed secrecy was a form of mercy. Light bent strangely here, refracting off layered crystalline walls that stored centuries of unspoken choices. A system burned quietly between them in holographic suspension. Not red, amber. "Explain this one," Nyxara said. Jonah studied the projection. Trade lanes, resource nodes, population density. A slow-building insurgency fueled by scarcity rather than ideology. "Human colony," he said. "Second-generation settlers, mostly families." "Yes." "Not a military threat," Jonah continued. "Yet." "Yes. And you're considering preemptive action," he finished. Nyxara watched him closely. "Correction. I am considering preventive restructuring." Jonah's jaw tightened. "That's not a thing." "It is when you redefine the system," she replied calmly. He looked at her, really looked. "You're asking me to help you justify it." "No," Nyxara said. "I'm asking you to decide whether I proceed." The room seemed to tilt. Jonah exhaled slowly. "That's not what I agreed to." "You agreed to make the cost visible," she said. "This is visibility." He stepped closer to the projection. "If you intervene now," Jonah said, "you radicalize them. You turn scarcity into grievance. You'll win the system and lose the next 10. Nyxara nodded slightly. "Acceptable losses." Jonah's voice sharpened. "You'll also prove every human fear about Elari governance right." Her eyes flickered. "Fear is manageable," she said. "Instability is not." Jonah turned to face her fully. "And what happens," he asked, "when I say don't do it?" Nyxara didn't answer immediately. That was new. "I do not require your permission," she said at last. "But I am incorporating your perspective." Jonah laughed quietly. "That's not an answer." Nyxara stepped closer, close enough that he felt the edge of her presence again, even with the dampening field active. "You assume this role makes you powerless," she said. "It does not." Her voice lowered. "It makes you complicit." The word sank in like a blade. Jonah felt it then, the shift, the moment where observation became participation. "If I say no," he said slowly, "and you do it anyway." "You will have warned me," Nyxara said, "and preserved your internal coherence. And if I say yes," Nyxara met his gaze, "then the responsibility will no longer be mine alone." The silence between them stretched, thick and unforgiving. Jonah looked back at the system. Families, children, people who would never know his name but whose fate would pivot on his discomfort. "This is what you wanted," Jonah said, "to spread the weight." "Yes," Nyxara replied. "You are very good at carrying it." Jonah closed his eyes. Doc Ring 7 rose unbidden in his mind. Not the explosion, not the chaos, but the moment after, when the decision had already been made and all that remained was ownership. He opened his eyes. "No," he said. Nyxara's brow ridged slightly. "No preemptive strike," Jonah continued. "No restructuring. You stabilize supply lines, open monitored corridors, let the pressure release instead of detonating it." "That will weaken our control," Nyxara said. "Yes," Jonah replied, "it will." She studied him. "And if your approach fails?" Jonah didn't look away. "Then I'll stand with you when you answer for it." Something shifted, not in the room, in her. Nyxara turned back to the projection and made a single, precise gesture. The amber glow dimmed, reclassified, rerouted into a new decision tree. "Very well," she said. "We will delay." Jonah's breath left him in a rush he hadn't realized he was holding. She faced him again. "You understand what you have just done," Nyxara said. "Yes." "You have altered a Larry response doctrine." "Yes." "You have made yourself accountable for outcomes beyond your authority." Jonah nodded once. "That's what you wanted." Nyxara was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something Jonah did not expect. "You should be afraid." He met her gaze. "I am." Her lips curved slightly, not cruel, not pleased, respectful. "Good," she said. "Then you understand me better than most." She turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing, Jonah Keene." "Yes." "This path you are carving between us," she said quietly, "does not end in neutrality." Jonah's voice was steady. "I wasn't aiming for safe." Nyxara looked at him then, not as a ruler assessing a tool, but as something far more dangerous, as an equal standing beside her in the fire. "Neither was I," she said. And when she left, Jonah understood the truth he'd been avoiding since the tribunal. He hadn't just stopped her from crossing a line. He'd stepped over one himself. And there would be no going back. The backlash came quietly. No alarms, no public denunciations, no dramatic summons before a council chamber, just silence where cooperation used to be. Jonah noticed it first in the data flow, requests rerouted, access tiers downgraded without explanation. Human coalition liaisons who had once sought his input now replied with carefully neutral acknowledgments, or not at all. He had crossed a line humans understood very well. He had chosen a Lari restraint over human outrage. The message arrived 12 hours later. Human Coalition Security Directive, EYES only. Subject Jonah Keene. Status, under review for strategic compromise. Jonah read it twice, then closed the interface. So that was how it felt from the other side. Nyxara summoned him immediately after. This time it wasn't to a chamber or vault. It was to her private observation sanctum. The room overlooked a dense star cluster, light spilling in slow, drifting patterns across the crystalline floor. Nyxara stood near the viewport, hands clasped behind her back, posture rigid in a way Jonah now recognized. Controlled but not calm. "You are being investigated," she said without preamble. "Yes," Jonah replied. I expected that. You are considered compromised. Yes. Nyxara turned. Her eyes were sharp, not cold but dangerously focused. They believe you are aligned with me over your own species. Jonah met her gaze. They're not wrong. The filaments along her arms brightened, reacting before she could stop them. That admission will cost you, she said. It already has, Jonah replied. But I didn't make that decision for you. I made it because it was right. Nyxara stepped closer. You altered my doctrine, she said, and now they will punish you for it. Jonah shrugged faintly. Humans do like it when one of their own stops screaming on command. Nyxara studied him, something unreadable moving behind her eyes. You could still distance yourself, she said. Publicly denounce the delay, frame it as Ilari overreach. Jonah shook his head. That would make your restraint look like weakness, he said, and that would get people killed later. Nyxara went very still. You are choosing consequence, she said. Yes. Silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid. Nyxara moved past him toward the central console and activated a restricted channel. The room's security field thickened, isolating them completely. This investigation will escalate, she said. If human command determines you are no longer reliable, they will recall you, possibly detain you. Jonah felt the familiar tightening in his chest, but this time there was no panic. Then they'll have to come get me. Nyxara turned sharply. That is not acceptable. Jonah blinked. What? I did not say this to assess your resolve, she said, voice low. I said it because I will not allow you to be removed. The words landed harder than any declaration before. You don't get a say in that, Jonah said carefully. Nyxara's eyes darkened. I am High Executor of this station, she said, and I do not relinquish assets lightly. Jonah exhaled a humorless laugh. I'm not an asset. Nyxara stepped closer, too close now. No, she said quietly, you are a liability. Her hand rose, stopping just short of his chest. And I protect what threatens me, she continued. Jonah felt it then, not the hum, not the pressure, but intent. You'd start a diplomatic incident, he said, over me. Yes. The answer was immediate. Jonah searched her face. Why? He asked. Nyxara's voice lowered. Because you make me hesitate, she said. And hesitation, once introduced, cannot be undone. Jonah swallowed. That's not protection, he said. That's attachment. The word hung between them, dangerous and undeniable. Nyxara's hand dropped. Ilari do not attach, she said. No, Jonah agreed softly. You anchor. Something in her expression fractured. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Nyxara turned away, facing the stars again. You will remain here, she said, under my jurisdiction. That will make things worse. Yes, she said, but it will keep you alive. Jonah watched her back, the rigid control, the power coiled beneath it. This is going to cost you, he said quietly. Nyxara's reflection in the viewport was sharp and luminous. I am already paying, she replied. She turned back to him one last time. And so are you. The room dimmed slightly, responding to the shift between them. Jonah understood then, not abstractly, not theoretically. Nyxara wasn't just protecting him from human command. She was choosing him over certainty. And that choice, once made, would force her to either change or burn everything that demanded she stay the same. Human command did not arrive with ships. They arrived with authorization. The station's internal systems registered the shift before any announcement was made, priority channels lighting up, security permissions rewriting themselves in real time. Jonah felt it like a pressure change in his bones. Nyxara felt it before the first message finished routing. They have invoked joint jurisdiction, she said, voice tight. They are asserting extraction rights. Jonah stood beside her in the sanctum, watching the starfield fracture into geometric overlays as the station recalibrated for diplomatic intrusion. So this is it, he said quietly. The part where I get walked out politely and disappear into a review board. Nyxara's jaw ridged. They are not authorized to take you, she said. They think they are. That is irrelevant. Jonah turned to her. Nyxara, if you block them, this becomes a confrontation. Not just for me. She met his gaze. I am aware. The channel opened without waiting for consent. Admiral Havelock's image resolved in the air, older, controlled, eyes already measuring damage. Jonah Keene, he said, you are ordered to stand down and prepare for immediate recall. Your actions constitute a breach of strategic neutrality. Jonah inhaled. I made a recommendation, he said. It saved lives. That is not for you to decide, Havelock replied. You exceeded your mandate. Nyxara stepped forward. Her presence altered the room instantly. Human Admiral, she said, Jonah Keene operates under my jurisdiction. Havelock's eyes flicked to her, just long enough to register discomfort. With respect, Executor, human personnel remain subject to human authority. Nyxara's filaments brightened. Then your authority is overreaching, she said, because this station is not human space. Havelock's jaw tightened. Step aside, Executor, he said. This is not your concern. The temperature in the room dropped. Nyxara did not raise her voice. It is precisely my concern, she said, because you are attempting to remove a stabilizing variable from an active system. Jonah felt it then, the shift from discussion to line drawing. Jonah, Havelock said, ignoring her. You're being manipulated. Step away from the Executor. Jonah didn't move. No, he said, Havelock's expression hardened. You are making this worse. Jonah met his eyes. I know. Nyxara turned slightly, her gaze never leaving the Admiral. You will not take him, she said. This is a direct challenge, Havelock warned. Yes, Nyxara agreed. The words settled like a blade laid flat on a table. Havelock stared at her for a long moment. Then understand the consequence, he said. If you interfere, you will be classified as hostile to human command interests. Nyxara's eyes did not waver. Then classify me, she said. Jonah's breath caught. Nyxara, he began. She lifted one hand. This is my choice, she said quietly. Do not take it from me. She faced the projection fully now. Human Admiral, Nyxara said. Jonah Keene remains under my protection. Any attempt at forcible extraction will be treated as an incursion. Silence, then Havelock spoke, voice cold. So be it. The channel cut. The sanctum lights dimmed further, responding to Nyxara's internal state. The station's defensive lattice hummed faintly to life. Jonah turned to her, heart pounding. You just burned a bridge, he said. Nyxara looked at him. No, she replied. I chose a shore. He swallowed. They're not going to stop. I know. And when they escalate. Nyxara stepped closer, close enough now that the hum along his nerves returned. Not restrained, not filtered. Then I will escalate with them, she said. Jonah searched her face. You're giving up certainty, he said softly. Everything you were. Nyxara's voice lowered. Yes. A pause, and I am choosing you. The words were not romantic. They were absolute. Jonah felt something tear loose inside his chest. Not relief, not triumph. Responsibility. You shouldn't do this for me, he said. Nyxara's gaze softened just enough to be dangerous. I'm not doing this for you, she said. I am doing it because you changed how I see consequence. Outside the viewport, human ships slid into holding position, silent, patient, threatening. Nyxara turned back to the stars. This is the point of no return, she said. Once crossed, there will be no neutral ground left for either of us. Jonah stepped to her side. Then don't stand there alone. She glanced at him. For the first time since he'd known her, her control did not fully close around the moment. Very well, she said. Stand with me. They faced the stars together. Two figures framed against impossible distances. One human, one Elari, both having chosen a line that could not be uncrossed. And Jonah understood with quiet certainty. Whatever happened next would not be recorded as diplomacy. It would be remembered as defiance. The first shot was never fired. That was how historians would later misinterpret it, by looking for explosions, casualties, dramatic last stands. But the moment everything changed happened quietly, inside a decision matrix no one but Nyxara was authorized to access. The human ships held position, waiting. Human Command believed escalation would force compliance. They always did. Pressure, deadlines, threats, tools refined over centuries. They assumed Nyxara would eventually choose stability over one human life. They were wrong about why she hesitated. Nyxara stood before the central command lattice alone. Jonah waited behind her, not restrained, not guarded, an intentional choice that sent a message to every sensor and observer on the station. This was not a hostage situation. This was alignment. Executor, came the final transmission from Human Command, routed through every available channel. You are ordered to disengage station defenses and surrender Jonah Keene for recall. Failure to comply will result in forceful extraction. Nyxara did not respond immediately. She reached instead into the lattice, past safeguards, past inherited constraints, past centuries of doctrinal certainty. For the first time in Ilari history, a High Executor initiated a self-amending authority protocol. The system resisted. Of course it did. Ilari governance was designed to prevent precisely this. A single will redefining the rules it was meant to uphold. Nyxara felt the strain ripple through her, logic frameworks clashing, ancestral directives screaming incoherence. Efficiency demanded compliance. Stability demanded sacrifice. And then there was something new, something Jonah had introduced simply by existing where he did. Cost. Not abstract, not statistical, personal. Nyxara inhaled, a meaningless biological habit in her species, yet one she had unconsciously adopted. She made her choice. The station's defensive lattice powered down, not in surrender, in reclassification. Across Human Command displays, the station's status shifted. AELARI jurisdiction, NON hostile. Human Extraction Authority, DNID. Reason, protected sapient entity, under executorial covenant. The word covenant had not been used in interspecies law for over 300 cycles. Jonah felt the air leave his lungs. Nyxara, he whispered. She turned to him then. Up close he could see it, the change. The crystalline filaments along her arms no longer pulsed in perfect symmetry. Her control structures had rewritten themselves around a new variable. Him. This action, she said calmly, constitutes a permanent deviation from Ilari High Executor doctrine. Jonah's voice was tight. What does that mean for you? Nyxara's eyes, those vast, iridescent eyes that had once evaluated entire systems without hesitation, softened. It means, she said, I will never again be trusted with absolute certainty. The transmission channel erupted, human voices overlapping, confused, furious. Legal objections, threats, warnings of precedent and consequence. Nyxara silenced them all with a single command. I am not at war with you, she said, addressing Human Command directly. But I will not surrender a sentient being to satisfy your need for control. Admiral Havelock's image flickered back into view. You're choosing one human over interstellar stability, he said. Nyxara met his gaze. No, she replied. I am choosing to redefine what stability costs. Silence. Then Havelock spoke, quieter now. You've made yourself something else. Yes, Nyxara agreed. I have. The channel cut. Outside the viewport, the human ships did not advance. They didn't retreat either. They simply waited. Jonah turned to Nyxara. You gave up everything, he said. Nyxara considered the stars. I gave up certainty, she corrected. I retained purpose. She faced him fully now. You should understand this, Jonah Keene. I did not save you. He frowned. You did. No, she said. I chose to stand where you were already standing. Something in Jonah's chest gave way, not relief, not triumph, recognition. What happens now? He asked. Nyxara's lips curved faintly, not in victory but in resolve. Now, she said, we exist in the space between. She stepped closer, not touching, not retreating. You will be unwanted by your command, she continued, and I will be watched by my people. Every future decision I make will be scrutinized for weakness. Jonah nodded. And every future decision I make will cost me whatever career I thought I had. Nyxara studied him. Do you regret it? Jonah didn't hesitate. No. Neither did she, nor do I. The station lights stabilized, recalibrating around a new equilibrium, one that no longer assumed emotional distance as default. They stood together, framed by stars that did not care about law, doctrine, or precedent. Only motion, only change. Nyxara had not become human. Jonah had not become Elari. But something irreversible had occurred between them. A line had been crossed and erased at the same time. And in the quiet aftermath, no explosions, no heroes, no clean victories. The universe adjusted itself around two beings who had chosen consequence over certainty, not because it was safe,